It's Friday, April 8th, 2011, about 5 p.m. Pacific time here in Sebastopol, California. Welcome to my new office. We're still getting settled on this 2 acres up here, and it's a wonderful place, but there's a lot of work and a lot of things are being done without the familiarity that we're used to, but that's true all over the world. This is an emergency action alert, and this is probably the most important one and the easiest one in terms of being able to figure out that I've ever put out before. We have until July at latest to prepare for complete economic pandemonium, along with all the social unrest that has been building and fomenting and is now breaking out, even though mainstream's trying to hide it. And the logic behind this is incredibly simple. Quarterly earnings reports are the foundation of how the stock market works, and even though I've spent almost a lifetime documenting how corrupt every financial measurement is out there, the one thing that cannot ever be fudged, because too many stockholders are there checking, and that has to be double checked and triple checked. As a matter of fact, the only thing that really matters to investors on Wall Street are quarterly earnings reports from major corporations. In my last emergency broadcast to you guys, I read a list of about 30 major Japanese companies, and the list was breathtaking. Everything from Asahi to Sony to Samsung to Toyota, Nissan, Toshiba, Mitsubishi, Yamaha, all were going down in Japan, and all are still shut down in various states of activity. We also reported to you on the World News Desk and here that the follow-on effects due to the component shortage as a result of this are having big bites around the world. We know that 6 major German companies, I believe Siemens was one of them, have been drastically affected because they cannot get the microchips, the circuitry, and anything else that they need to put their products out on the line. So the interconnected, complex global supply chain is beyond stressed, and the evidence surrounding that is clear. But not only that, we have seen Toyota announce a shutdown of all North American plants. That's Mexico, Canada, and the U.S. Haven't seen clear numbers, but clearly at least 50,000 people are unemployed, but those cars are not being made and they aren't going into GDP. That money isn't circulating. We have a couple of GM plant slowdowns, temporary shutdowns as they're reported. But we saw yesterday on the World News Desk, or the day before, that Toyota was shutting down its UK manufacturing plants for an unknown period of time, laying off people there. Those are cars that are not being sold in the British economy, and those are paychecks that are not being issued. Now, why this is so simple to see this so clearly is that every business must submit a quarterly earnings statement. Now, that's based on their fiscal year, and companies have many different fiscal years, it depends upon when they started the clock for that company. But if we use March 10th, the date of the earthquake in Japan, our date, it was March 11th there, as the cutoff date for Japan, that's maybe 2/3 of 1 month. That will have a serious impact on the quarterly statements coming out of Japan. But what we look for now is the first 3-month period of operation around the world for corporations after the earthquake. You will see most of those earning reports being published in June and July of this year. And there will be warnings notices before that. You see a little buzz on all the financial networks and publications about that. But that will not be able to be hidden. And the impact on global GDP will be devastating. United States especially, Canada, as all plants, Honda, Nissan, Toyota, are shut down or slowed down due to parts shortages. And all of the consumer electronics that come out of the industrialized world will be suffering also as a result of chip and microcircuitry losses. And that is something that will send the markets absolutely into a panic, because the markets are totally over leveraged. Everything has been banked upon growth, GDP growth. Japan has, in effect, killed growth around the planet. It may have killed the global economy because that event is not over, and we don't know how much more damage has yet to be done as a result of the radiation to that country and around the world. So we know that when the earnings reports come out, stock prices are going to plummet. Now, even as we record this today, Europe is falling apart. Portugal has asked for a bailout. Spain is being declared in a couple of good stories too big to bail, not too big to fail. And of course, every other nation that has received a bailout, from Greece to Ireland, everywhere else, all of their respective GDPs are going to fail, and all those bailouts were issued on the assumption of continued economic growth. When large, significant negative growth is shown across the board globally for a quarter, the markets have no place to go but to implode. And that can't be hidden. I started thinking about this when I read a story about the carry trade, which is the trading of currencies around the globe in arbitrage to make money, borrowing Japanese yen at zero interest for some currency that might pay a tenth of a percentage point more interest. All of that has been thrown haywire, but my first thought was, well, gee, they can use Promise software. They can do what they're doing all across the board to change the rules and change definitions in Orwell newspeak. But the one thing that cannot be hidden is quarterly earnings reports. So we know that we have just at most 1 quarter of business activity with the follow-on reports, and the bulk of those, as I said, should be in by July for one quarter operating without the Japanese input to the global economy, and that's it. It's over. It's done. Then I have no doubt, and this is the easiest call I've made in decades, that things will unravel very quickly. You will see massive losses in the Dow. It's unavoidable, but you will also see all these bailout plans in Europe and the U.S. fail. None of us have any real understanding of what the U.S. government is trying to do now. The best it can do on energy is to threaten to sue OPEC, as President Obama has made absolutely absurd promises, and they are rearranging deck chairs on the Titanic. But let me throw a couple of other components in here that are critical. Business Insider today was reporting that Citigroup has recommended a major sell on all auto companies. Every single major auto company is a sell, according to Citigroup. They all use Japanese components. Market still doesn't appreciate the Japanese earthquake. That's the absolute truth. We're having another problem now that's exacerbating our woes all around the world. One of which is one problem is that fuel prices are, of course, spiking, as we all know. Crude is topped 110, Brent 122. They're continuing to rise. Today, Muammar Gaddafi allegedly bombed his own oil fields. That's going to make it worse. But as fuel prices are rising, we have been putting stories on the World News Desk showing that whether it's farmers in the United States in the Corn Belt or fishermen who catch shrimp off the coast of Nicaragua, they're not planting food, they're not going out to catch food because they can't afford the oil. That is the true evil way that money works, just at a time when we must be planting more food, in a year that looks like it's going to be very disappointing in terms of total global harvest. We are not able to because we can't afford the oil. Yet, the physical reality is that we have the oil, it could be running tractors, and food could be being planted. It's the way money works that's preventing that from happening. I took a quote from a story from Zero Hedge. As U.S. Energy Secretary expresses great concern due to high oil prices, OPEC oil shipments decline. What happened to Saudi Arabia adding 3 million barrels a day to production? This is a quote. This is from Zero Hedge, who's been doing a great job. It has gotten so bad that U.S. Energy Secretary Stephen Chu was dragged out of his office to present his version of the irrational exuberance speech so pervasively ignored by the stock market until it was proven to be the only sensible thing ever uttered by the maestro. That would be Alan Greenspan. At a news conference on clean energy, Steve Chu said on Thursday, high oil prices posed a threat to the global economy. No kidding. The oil producer countries and the oil, this is a quote, and the oil consuming countries are concerned because it does have an impact on a very fragile economic recovery. There is great concern, Chu told a news conference while attending a clean energy conference. Quote, there's ongoing discussions. I'm not going to go into any of the details of the discussions. There is a concern about trying to stabilize prices. There is a concern about rising prices, he said. There may be a concern, but according to the president, there isn't really much that can be done about said prices. The best people can do is learn to cope, especially since there is no chance that the commodity complex will be declining anytime soon. And to many, today's European Central Bank decision was a potential catalyst, and instead the market took one long look at the number, listened for 2 minutes to Trichet's rambling remarks, and bid everything up, put it up for sale. That was the European Central Bank's decision on interest rates. So nothing will hide, nothing will be able to conceal what's going to be apparent to the financial world on its face no later than July. And that's when the wheels will come off completely. When we see a 4,000 or 5,000 point drop in the Dow, which will be inevitable as global GDP suffers under the loss of Japanese input, and as the financial system goes haywire, I'm kind of, in a left-handed way, grateful to the events in Japan for what they have given us. They have given us a wall against which we know we have to look and back ourselves up to, and we have between now and July to get ourselves as ready as possible to feed ourselves, to protect ourselves, to keep ourselves warm, to stay out of the way as much as possible until things settle down. I really do not think we will be living in anything like the society we have known, the civilization we have known, by this fall. I'm as confident as this as I have ever been. This is a serious alert. We now have a calendar. We now have a clock. Get your stuff together no later than July, and that's assuming that any one of a half a dozen other things doesn't go wrong to bring it about before that. But it's pretty clear a caveman could see it. I'll be back to you when I need to. It's great to be up here in Northern California. We've had some server issues lately. We were changing servers. The website was down. That was a temporary problem. It's fixed. But we've had some drills here too at CollapseNet. Drills, some training, if you will, in that during this last week or so, as I was moving, one of our senior executives had a sudden death in the family. Another senior executive had a complete computer failure. We have lost the services of one of our staff who was in Japan and unable to function because he's too close to the Fukushima incident. And so this kind of gave me and gave all of us here at CollapseNet a glimpse into our vulnerabilities, which we're working to fix, but this is the kind of instability and rolling decks that we need to kind of get used to, and it's quite an emotional ride. Don't minimize that. Don't try to suck it all up and act like John Wayne. You're going to need friends around you just sometimes to scream and pull your hair out. I'll talk to you soon.